Yo, what is up everybody, and welcome back to another Madden 17 online game. Today we are doing our 4th team for the 32 team preview series for the upcoming NFL season we got going on the channel. It's the final team of the NFC North to go over, the Detroit Lions, a team that came very close to winning the NFC North last season. All they had to do was close out the season well and hope Green Bay didn't win every single game at the end of the regular season. And you guys know how that went. Green Bay got hot and Detroit went ice cold. They lost their last 3 games, still got in as a wild card in the playoffs, but lost in pretty convincing fashion the wild card round 2 to Seattle Seahawks. So where does this leave the Detroit Lions from here? Can they go uphill, make improvements next year, maybe win the division, and actually win a playoff game for the first time in God knows how long? I got bad news for you, Motown. I'm not really feeling too good about the Detroit Lions this year. The good news is they got Matt Stafford at the quarterback position, and when you have an elite quarterback like Matt Stafford, you got a chance to at least do something, and that's what the Lions had last year. Stafford was playing out of his mind. He was playing like, you know, maybe a top 5 quarterback, should I say, last year. Especially with all the 4-quarter comebacks Stafford was making, he pretty much just put the team on his back with the way he was playing, and that was the main reason why they were doing so good for so long last season, just clutching out those close games. But they went cold at the end of last year, and I have a feeling more that's going to happen as we go into this upcoming season. So I mentioned Stafford, and one of the things that was making Stafford really good last year is that he had a lot of targets to throw the ball to. Unfortunately, some of those targets are not there anymore. Andre Roberts is gone, and Anquan Bolden is not on the roster. I don't know what Bolden's plans are. He might be on an NFL team. I might be blanking, but I know he's not on the Lions roster right now, and that hurts because he was pretty reliable last year. And now all you got is Marvin Jones, who was actually a really good pickup last year. I think people were skeptical about was anybody that got signed from the Bengals last year as a wide receiver in free agency going to be good. Marvin Jones was definitely good for the Bengals. Was he elite? Not really. He kind of slowed down, but he was okay. And then Golden Tate, he's been pretty good for the Lions. He had a really slow start to the year. He and Marvin Jones kind of flip-flopped as the season went on. I had Golden Tate last year in fantasy. That dude had absolutely nothing for the first couple of weeks, and then he did okay. But that's the thing. Their receiving core is just okay. And unfortunately, Eric Ebron, he hasn't been too good since he got drafted. Apparently, he's really excited about his upcoming role this season. They're going to use him a lot. I hope they use him well and he catches a lot of footballs because they're definitely going to need him to step up. That tight end spot's been a problem for Detroit for a couple of years now. And they tried to improve it in the draft. They tried to get it with Pettigrew. Didn't really work out. Tried to get it with Ebron. So far, it hasn't worked out. So you look around Matt Stafford. Unfortunately, the talent on offense, you know, it's like the rest of this Detroit team is just about average. Their offensive line was actually shaping up to be pretty good this season. They signed Ricky Wagner away from the Baltimore Ravens, which was a pretty good signing because he's been a pretty good right tackle for that team the last 2 or 3 years. And they were supposed to have Taylor Decker on his side. That's supposed to be the 2-tackle combo. But unfortunately, Taylor Decker injured his shoulder sometime during the offseason, and his whole season's in doubt. So Taylor Decker right now, not the left tackle. The left tackle, who knows who it is. They picked up TJ Lang as well in free agency, which is pretty good. TJ Lang getting up there in age, but offensive linemen, they seem to age pretty well as opposed to most other positions in the NFL. You could play an offensive lineman in your mid to even late 30s sometimes and get away with it. Well, not really late 30s, but like mid 30s, stuff like that. You can get away with it. So, you know, TJ Lang still should be a pretty good signing for them. But unfortunately, the left side of their offensive line is looking pretty bad right now. They drafted a couple of guys the last couple of years to try to fix this problem. They drafted that dude in the first round last year, Lincoln Tomlinson, his name is. He hasn't really panned out. Actually, that was 2 years ago. 3 drafts ago, they drafted him. 2 years ago, 3 drafts ago is when they drafted him. And then they drafted a guy in the 3rd round of last year's draft, Glasgow. But, I mean, it doesn't really matter what their names are because they haven't really been too good this season. And if those guys don't step up, there's going to be a huge problem on the Detroit offensive line next season, especially on that left side. The blind side is going to be a bad side for Matt Stafford next year if they don't shape things out. And then the running game for the Detroit Lions. Haven't even touched that one. That's not good for the Lions. It was awful last year. Theo Riddick was a really good receiving back last year, and that was his main strength. But as a normal running back, that's not really his strength. He's supposed to be the 3rd down back, you know, come in late games and stuff like that, and if you're down and catch some passes. Amir Abdullah is supposed to be the main guy for the Detroit Lions, but he has been injured his whole career. He was pretty hyped up coming out of Nebraska. He looked really good, you know, coming into his rookie year, but unfortunately the injury bug has caught him. He played, what, 1 game last year, maybe 2, went down, out for the year, and that's been the story of his career. And it's hard to count on Amir Abdullah actually giving you production for a large part of the next season, so if Amir Abdullah plays, I like when he plays. Like, I like watching him. He looks pretty elusive when he runs with the football when he plays, but he just hasn't been healthy, and that's the main problem. You can't stay healthy, man. I mentioned it before. The best ability is availability. It's really a big deal in the NFL when there's only 16 games in the regular season, and if you're going to miss a bunch of them, then you're not really bringing much to your team, and that's unfortunately the problem with the Lions, because the rest of the running backs are pretty bad. The receiving core, they drafted someone in the 3rd round, some like 6'4" dude. So hopefully he works out. The main part of their draft class this year was drafting defensive players, mainly defensive players from the Florida Gators. And hopefully for them it works out, because their defense is extremely average on paper. This is the most average defense I've ever seen in my life, man. The only guy that really stands out is Darius Slay. Even you think about Ezekiel Ansah, he's like a superstar kind of guy, but he had 2 sacks last year, like 2 or 3 sacks last year. That is not good. That's not what you want from your best defensive lineman, but that's what he brought. Otherwise, like I said, this team is extremely average. Glover Quinn, he got a lot of interceptions a couple of years ago, but otherwise, you know, okay. You know, you got like Lawson in the secondary, he's okay. Wilson, he's okay. The defensive line is, you know, decent. It's got a lot of depth to it. You got Kerry Hyder Jr., you got Cornelius Washington. They drafted what's his name? Alshon? I'm going to say Alshon, but it's actually Alshon Robinson a couple years ago. And these are pretty decent guys. Haloti Ngata, I don't even know you can count on him to do anything because he's pretty old at this point. But yeah, the defense line depth is decent when you look at it on paper, but last year they had like the 2nd or 3rd least amount of sacks as a team. So they're not getting to the quarterback. They're not rushing the quarterback well. And they're just a really average team. And then the one problem with that being average is you don't have any star player forcing turnovers. You're not getting sacks, and you're not getting these big-time players. Like, no one's really going at Darius Slay. They're going at everyone else, and no one's forcing turnovers. And the Lions were one of the teams that forced the least amount of turnovers last year. And there's just nothing that stands out to me that's going to say this is going to change. And I mentioned before, it's going to be a recurring theme that draft classes have a huge impact on what can happen for a team in the upcoming season, especially when you get, like, steals in the draft. So you hope that Jamal Agnew, cornerback drafted in the 5th round, is going to be a steal. You hope Jeremiah Ledbetter is going to be a steal drafted in the 6th round, but they're probably not going to be. You mainly want the guys up top that were drafted in the 1st and 2nd round to be the big guys, Jared Davis and Tease Tabor. I don't really know too much about college players. I follow these guys once they go into the NFL. So I don't really got the scouting report on these guys, but basically those guys, they gotta change the culture on that defense. Otherwise, I really do not think Detroit's gonna have too good of a year. I actually think the Bears, I like the Bears roster more than Detroit's roster, to be honest. It's literally everything besides the quarterback position. Like, if you could put Matt Stafford on that Bears roster, I would say the Bears might be a playoff team, honestly. You know, it just is that much of a difference. But because of that, because Detroit has a quarterback and nothing else, pretty much. I mean, I'm not going to say literally nothing else. They have a few blue chip players. Like, if Ansah does good, and you have Darius Slay and stuff like that. But the Bears, they have nothing at the quarterback position, and because of that, both these teams are probably not going to do good next year. I said the Bears were going to go like 5-11 and 6-10 or something like that. I think the Lions actually might do worse. I think the Lions are like a 4-10, 5-11 team. The one thing that could give them a couple of wins is Matt Stafford. He did it last year, but they really need to have a consistent receiving core in order to be able to make those 4-quarter comebacks, because Stafford doesn't trust the receivers, and the receivers are running the right routes or something like that, because they got a lot of young guys in there. It can cause a lot of problems next year. So that's why I'm not feeling good about the Lions. You guys, you know, I've been, you know, pretty optimistic about pretty much every single team so far. We're not optimistic about every team here, and unfortunately the Lions are one of them. And I know they're an easy team to beat up on because the Lions never win. They don't have a history of winning, and I'm not really trying to do that with them, but I just really do not like their roster. And I thought they honestly overachieved last year, which isn't a bad thing. That's cool. You can pull out a lot of wins doing that. And maybe they do that and go like 6-10 or 7-9, but I just really don't think they're going to make the playoffs next year. The division's, you know, kind of tough. They got a second place schedule, which is kind of scary. You go against teams like the Giants and stuff like that. And I liked my Giants last year against the Lions. We won a pretty good game against them. I actually went to that game, and I wasn't really too impressed with the Lions, which is probably part of the reason why I'm saying they're not going to do good. But that basically wraps up the NFC North portion of the schedule for this series. Next up, probably going to hit up the NFC West. Going to continue doing the whole NFC conference like I mentioned before, and then we'll move on to the AFC. After the NFC West, you know, I haven't decided which one we'll do next between the NFC. Probably save the NFC East for last for the NFC, just because it's such a juicy conference. There's so much going on. There's so much drama. You got all the big name teams in there, all the big market teams. So probably save that one last. That'll be a fun one to do. And plus my Giants are in there, so I kind of want to keep them in the back there. But yeah, so basically my prediction is Packers win the NFC North, and the Vikings might win it. They might. You never know what can happen. They might win it, but because Green Bay, they just run such a weird schedule. They turn it up in the most random times. So yeah, that's my thing. And then the Chicago Bears and the Lions, they'll be fighting back there. Their records might come down to who wins more divisional games or something like that. So leave a like in the video if you guys enjoyed it. Subscribe for more Madden 17 online games. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section about the Detroit Lions, especially Lions fans. If I'm wrong, let me know why I'm wrong, man. I definitely want to know why I'm wrong. I don't think I'm perfect. I know there's stuff I say that's wrong. So, you guys got any ideas about why the Lions are better than I think they are? Let me know. Subscribe for more, like I said. Leave a like, and I'll catch you guys next time.